Forget everything you thought you knew about Olympus and the Underworld. There's a forgotten chapter in Greek mythology, a time when the master of the dead, Hades himself, walked among us and exerted his power over the surface world. This wasn't just a visit, it was a reign. The implications are far more terrifying and fascinating than you could ever imagine. When we think of Hades, we picture a gloomy figure ruling from a subterranean throne, forever bound to the shadows. He's the god of the dead, the king of a realm no living soul wishes to visit. But what if that's only half the story? What if the ancient texts hint at something more? A period when the veil between the living and the dead was thin, and Hades' influence wasn't just confined to the underworld. This is a story of Hades above ground, the myths that reveal a god far more complex and powerful than the one we learned about in school. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Nightforge. Let's start by busting a major myth. Hades wasn't evil. Unlike the villains of modern pop culture, the ancient Greeks saw him as a stern but just ruler. His job was to maintain the cosmic balance between life and death. He was feared, yes, but also respected. He was the wealthiest of the gods, his realm holding all the precious metals and gems hidden within the earth. His name, Hades, means the unseen one, a title that reflects both his invisible realm and his preference for staying out of the chaotic dramas of Olympus. He was the ultimate introvert, content in his own kingdom. So, why would this reclusive king ever leave his domain? The standard answer is the famous myth of Persephone. Desperate for a queen, Hades abducted the beautiful daughter of Demeter, the goddess of the harvest. This act plunged the world into an eternal winter as a grief-stricken Demeter abandoned her duties. Zeus had to intervene, forcing a compromise. Persephone would spend part of the year with Hades and the other part on the surface. This myth is usually seen as the one time Hades significantly impacted the world of the living, creating the seasons. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. This event wasn't just a love story, it was a power play that established a permanent bridge between his world and ours. Through Persephone, Hades gained a direct, recurring link to the surface. This is where things get really interesting. Some lesser-known texts and interpretations suggest that Hades' influence didn't just end with the changing seasons. The ancient Greeks had a concept called chthonic deities, gods associated with the earth and the underworld. Hades was their king. These weren't just gods of death, but also of the earth's hidden potential, fertility, wealth, and agricultural abundance. Think about it. Seeds are planted in the dark earth before they sprout into the light. This is Hades' domain. He wasn't just the keeper of souls. He was the guardian of life's starting point. Some scholars argue that in early cults, Hades was worshipped not just as a god of the dead, but as a god of agricultural wealth, under names like Pluton, which literally means the wealthy one. This suggests a time when his power was seen as essential for a good harvest. Farmers would have made offerings to him, asking him to bless the soil and ensure their crops would grow. So Hades wasn't just dragging things down into the darkness, he was the source of life that emerged from it. He wasn't just taking, he was also giving. This reign over the earth wasn't one of tyranny, but of a crucial life-sustaining cycle. But what about a more literal reign? Are there myths where Hades walked the earth as a king? While there's no single myth of King Hades of the surface world, the clues are scattered everywhere. Consider his helmet of invisibility. Why would a god who never leaves his realm need to be invisible? The helmet allowed him to travel unseen among mortals and gods alike. Ancient writers like Homer describe gods frequently meddling in human affairs, like the Trojan War. While Hades is largely absent from these accounts, the possession of such a powerful artifact implies he had the means, and perhaps the motive to move through the mortal world, observing, influencing, and acting without anyone knowing. Imagine Hades, cloaked in invisibility, walking through a bustling city-state. He wouldn't be there to cause chaos like Ares or play tricks like Hermes. He would be there as an observer, the ultimate judge of mortal affairs. He would see the heroes and the villains, the just and the corrupt, knowing that eventually, all of them would stand before him in his hole. This unseen presence adds a chilling layer to his character. He wasn't just waiting for souls to arrive, he was actively watching the lives they led. This hidden influence could be terrifying. Imagine a king making a corrupt judgment, or a merchant cheating his customers. Hades could be standing right there, unseen, taking note. His justice wasn't immediate, but it was inevitable. This idea of an ever-present invisible arbiter of fate would have been a powerful social control mechanism. The fear of Hades wasn't just about dying, it was about the life you lived before you died. He was the ultimate accountant of human souls. Let's explore another angle. Is direct confrontations on the surface. One of the most shocking myths involves the hero Heracles. As part of his 12 labors, Heracles had to capture Cerberus, the three-headed guard dog of the Underworld. To do this, he had to descend into Hades' realm. But another, more violent version of the story tells of a confrontation at Pylos, a gateway to the Underworld on Earth. In this tale, Heracles actually wounds Hades with an arrow, forcing the god of the dead to flee to Olympus to be healed. Think about that for a second. The lord of the Underworld, the master of death, was physically present on the surface, fighting a mortal hero and getting wounded. This shatters the image of a passive king confined to his throne. It shows a god willing to personally defend the borders of his domain, a god who could bleed and feel pain. This event proves Hades wasn't an abstract concept. He was a physical being who could and did interact with the mortal world, sometimes violently. His reign wasn't just symbolic, it was tangible and had real-world consequences. This leads us to the most profound idea. Hades didn't just rule the dead, he ruled the boundary between life and death itself. This boundary wasn't a fixed line, it was a fluid, contested space. Places like caves, deep lakes, and volcanic vents were considered entrances to the underworld. Hades' power radiated from these points, blurring the lines between his realm and ours. Oracles and prophets would go to these places to seek wisdom from the spirits of the dead, a process that required Hades' permission. He was the gatekeeper of ancestral knowledge. By controlling this flow of information, Hades held a unique form of power. While Zeus ruled the skies with thunderbolts and Poseidon the seas with his trident, Hades ruled through secrets, wealth, and the inescapable promise of death. He was a silent partner in every mortal life, the final destination on every journey. His reign wasn't conducted from a palace on Olympus, but from the very ground beneath our feet, from the shadows, in the corner of our eye, and from the quiet certainty in our hearts that all things must come to an end. So, the next time you think of Hades, don't just picture a lonely king in a dark castle. Picture a god of immense wealth and hidden fertility. Picture an invisible observer walking through our world, a silent judge of our actions. Picture a warrior god defending the borders of his realm. On the surface of the earth, Hades defied the boundaries we created for him, proving that his influence was as deep and widespread as the roots of the world itself. He is the Dark King who walked among us, and his forgotten reign reminds us that the most powerful forces are often the ones we cannot see. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the shadows of Greek mythology. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden side of Hades, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories you thought you knew. Let me know in the comments which god or myth we should explore next. Until then, stay curious.